Congratulations on making it to the last video in the JavaScript section of this course. We've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at variables, we've looked at if statements, we've looked at two different kinds of loops, and various ways of manipulating the style and the content of web pages. So you're well on your way on knowing enough JavaScript to actually make interactive websites that your users are going to love. The last thing we're going to look at here is functions, which is a nice way to compress your code, make it more efficient and easier to manage, especially when you've got a large amount of code to deal with. So let's see how a function might work. At its basic level, we define a function by just using the word function, and then we have the name of a function. So let's say we'll have a function called alert me. And that function is just going to have an alert box with a message of some sort in it. So I've used the conventional naming method, so alert is all small lowercase, and the capital M for me there separates out the words quite nicely. I'm going to use a pair of brackets there. I'll talk more about those in a second. And then, as usual, I'm going to use the curly brackets or braces to contain the text of my function. So all this function is going to do is say, "Hi Rob." That's it. Very simple. Now, if I run that code, nothing happens. That's because this function isn't actually being activated. It's not being done. So to do it, all I do is just use the name of the function followed by brackets. And then there we go. There it happens. So in this particular case, it's not that much more convenient to do alert me than it is to just write alert hi Rob. But in a lot of cases, there might be things that you want to do again and again and again, and you don't want to write out the code for those things again and again and again. And more importantly, there might be things that you want to do again and again and again that you want to be in a position to update or change very easily. And if you've written it out 10 times in your code, not only is that a big waste of space in your code, but also it means that you have to update it 10 times. So functions are very useful for any type of code that you have to write out again and again. Indeed, it's a general coding principle that you should never write a command more than once in your statement. If you're rewriting code or copying and pasting code, then you'll probably be better off using a function to compress it and keep it neater. So just to show you a few other ways that you can use functions, you can have a function which works with particular variables. So let's say we want a function that's going to add two numbers together. We definitely don't need a function that does that, but let's see if we can make one. So we'll call it adding. Now we're going to use inside these brackets, we're going to have two letters, A and B, and they will refer to the two numbers that we want to add together. So whenever I use the adding function, I'm going to have to give the function two numbers. So let's say 3 and 4. So let's see how that works. So alert, I want to alert A plus B. Does that work? It does. It works. Alert 7. Fantastic. So just to check, 3 add 54 is indeed 57. Great. So what I'm doing there is providing the numbers to a function, and that's a really powerful thing to do, especially when you use variables in with that. You can actually make extremely powerful functions that work no matter what variable you're putting into it. Okay, a final thing that you should be aware of with functions is that you might not want to alert the value, but you might just want to get the value somehow. So the way you do that is instead of using the alert command, you use return. So that means that the function will return this value. So if I want to add 3 and 54 using this function, if I now run it, it doesn't do anything. It does the adding, but it doesn't actually show us what the adding is. But maybe I want to change the content of this paragraph tag to the result of that function. How would I do that? Well, let's see. Let's just give it an ID of paragraph for now. And then all I need to do is my usual document.getElements by ID paragraph, and then set the inner HTML of that to the result of the adding function. So doing it this way just gives you a lot more power to do whatever you want with the result of that function. Let's just see if that works. Great, it's worked. And again, we can change that to whatever we like. 176, then we get the result there. So you can make yourself a nice little calculator or something out of that. So that will do for our brief look at functions. We're now going to go along and take on the challenge of the JavaScript section of the course.